Today on the Healthful Pursuit podcast, the relief is always temporary, because once the dopamine release is over, then the guilt sets in and the cycle begins again, either that moment or the next day, or like a series of events. Hey, my name is Leanne, and I'm fascinated with helping women navigate how to eat, move, and care for their bodies. This has taken me on a journey from vegan, keto, high protein to everything in between. I'm a small town holistic nutritionist turned 3-time international bestselling author turned functional medicine practitioner, offering telemedicine services around the globe to women looking to better their health and stop second guessing themselves. I'm here to teach you how to wade through the wellness noise to get to the good stuff that'll help you achieve your goals. Whether you're seeking relief from chronic ailments, striving for peak performance, or simply eager to live a more vibrant life, this podcast is your go-to resource for actionable advice and inspiration. Together, we'll uncover the interconnectedness of nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, and mindset, empowering you to make informed choices that support your unique health journey. Think of it as quality time with your bestie mixed with a little med school so you're empowered at your next doctor visit. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn about your body and how to care for it healthfully. Join me as we embrace vitality, reclaim our innate potential, and discover what it truly means to pursue healthfulness. Hey, welcome back to Healthful Pursuit, where we dive into the real challenges that are facing women today on our health journeys and exploring just the practical solutions. I want to empower you. I want us to just be able to sit down and go through the things that we're struggling with and come up with some solutions. So today I want to talk about something that I hear so much from each and every one of you, and that is cravings. Like the overwhelming urge for insert food here, chocolate, chips, like whatever that go-to food is for you. And there are a couple of different ways that cravings can hit. I find the most common craving situation for women today is that we are not eating enough. We are intermittent fasting all day, and then the hungry monster comes out and we just want to eat everything that's not nailed down. And then we don't stop eating until 11 o'clock. We go to bed. Our heart rate variability is super low because we just ate a whole bunch of food. So we don't sleep well. Then we get up, we fast through the day, repeat. Or then there's just the restriction binge where you have rules of foods to eat or not eat. And when you have just a little bit of the food that you know is quote unquote bad, then you eat all the things. Or sometimes we're just dealing with cravings because we need that food, or cravings because we feel like we need that food emotionally. I know that for many, many years, and once I unpacked it, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is totally an emotional craving. For many, many years, when I would get upset or I would feel lonely, I would want candy every time, like without fail. And I remember going to the Bulk Barn in Canada. There are these ridiculous stores called Bulk Barn where you can get unlimited candy. And so I would go there. I would get all the candy. I would eat all the candy when I felt just lonely. And then I had a memory of sitting with my dad in our little tent, eating our little gummies. And it was just a longing that I had to be closer to the people around me. And so when I have those feelings, I just text my dad now. Say, Dad, what's up? And so those are some examples of the whole craving situation, and we're going to get into it more. But generally, it is a feeling of an uncontrollable urge to eat foods, and perhaps you haven't figured out what's going on there, and either you act on the craving and then guilt sets in, or you don't act on the craving and you drink wine, or you get angry at your husband or your kids, or whatever the case may be. There's an area that we need to unpack here. A lot of behaviors after craving that I've seen in my practice are guilt, maybe skipping our next meals to make up for it or promise yourself it won't happen again, or jump on the treadmill, go to the gym, and the cycle repeats and it repeats and it repeats. And so this is something that I dealt with for many, many, many years. And the answer for me has been to literally eat. I think movement helped a whole bunch where because I'm moving my body so much, it's hard for me to make sure that I'm eating enough because I move my body so much that I require so much. And now that my lean muscle mass is so much, I have to eat so much more. And so it's kind of this slippery slope of, at the end of the day, oftentimes I'm having to eat more, which can be a struggle in and of itself. But I would say 95% of my cravings went away when I just ate enough. And so I wanted to make this episode because so many of us experience this. And when I was studying to become a nutritionist, I didn't realize how many individuals struggled with it. Not so much the individuals in my class, because we never really talked about it. But when I started meeting with women, it was these same behaviors over and over and over and over again. And as keto and intermittent fasting built in popularity, women were going long periods of time without eating, and then 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock or even 7 o'clock would hit, and then it would just be a frenzy. And so I just wanted to unpack some of these things. Now, cravings themselves are deeply rooted in biology, emotions, lifestyle habits. And I just want to break down the cycle bit by bit, and I'll explain why cravings are happening, why they're so hard to resist, and how you can really take back the quote unquote control. I've found in my own life when I don't have control over other circumstances, I can use food as a means of setting up that safeguard of control in my life, and it never does me any service. So I find I have to have grace for myself when I feel out of control with areas of my life. My go-to is to start tracking and really meticulously looking through things and starting to make up food rules. And so when those things happen, I just kind of got to check myself before I wreck myself. I also want to share some powerful tools that I've learned to help you along the way of looking at your cravings, questioning your cravings. One of the biggest things that I've learned is there's nothing wrong with the feeling that I'm feeling when it comes to food. Like, I don't know, if I get home after a crazy day and I'm like, oh, this rarely happens now, but I just want a bowl of cereal. I say, okay, let's take a pause. What's that about? Doesn't mean I can't have the cereal, but what's going on in my life? What's happening right now? Why do I think I need this right now? And where I found macro tracking actually to be really helpful for me is starting to learn what a craving for a carbohydrate or a protein or a fat feels like. When I check my macros and I have them really dialed in and I know these ones work for me, when I'm craving that bowl of cereal, sometimes I'll even create a pause, say, it's not that I can't have the cereal. I'm just going to ask myself these questions. I'm going to go to my macro tracker. I'm just going to see, where am I at for macros today? Most of the time now that I have macros dialed in and I'm in a better place with cravings and all of those things, I'll be like, wow, the reason I'm craving cereal is because I'm really low in carbs today. I'm very low in carbs today. So could it be that I'm craving cereal, or could it be that I'm craving more carbs? When I think about potatoes, do I want potatoes? Nah, that doesn't sound good. Do I want apples? No, that doesn't sound good. Do I want cereal? Yeah, I still want cereal. And then I go ahead and have that cereal. And what I used to do was very much like, can't have cereal, can't have cereal. Cereal's forbidden. Well, 1 cup of my little cereal snackies from 7 Sundays, I think there's 20 grams of carbs. It's made from recycled oat protein. I'm not worried about it. And it hits the spot and it's okay. Now, there are individuals who need to completely abstain from having certain foods in the house. There was a period of time where when I was really, really struggling with the binge situation, a coach had suggested that I keep all of the foods in the house, all of the foods. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog snoring. She's snuggling beside me because when I'm recording the podcast, she is so restless. So she has to lay right here. So if you can hear a dog snoring, I apologize. So what this coach recommended I do, because I was really struggling with just having a right mindset around food, she suggested, at least for me, that I get all of the foods that I would normally binge on, like a lot of it, and just keep it in the house and allow myself to eat those foods whenever I wanted them. And you might be thinking, oh, Leanne, that's a recipe for disaster. I would eat everything. Oh, I did. Yep, I did. I did. Like 3 weeks in, eating all of it. I was so excited to come home. I ate it all. And then I would get sugar high and low, and then I would eat more and sugar high and low. And then it just lost its excitement. It just didn't do it for me. All I wanted was kale. And that was a big turning point. In fact, now that I'm training for Patagonia, I'm in the last couple of weeks of my training and my intakes are so high, and I'm working out about 4 hours a day some days, like with my walking and cross training and all the things, that I've been eating like gummy bears on my walks to just keep myself regulated and just keep the fuel coming in. Yes, I could fuel with fat, but I have found that at least right now I'm doing better with my hormones and thyroid by fueling with carbohydrates. So I'm just rolling with it. Maybe that's a conversation for another time, but I have a half-eaten bag of gummy bears in my backpack for my next walk. And I think about it and I'm like, oh, I could have those right now. And I'm like, I don't really feel like them right now. And that is a huge, that is progress. And so there are individuals that can do that. And there are other individuals that they just won't stop. And those are the abstaining individuals that they're likely going to have to be a little bit more strict and spend more time on the emotional process of things. But I have found, working with the hundreds of women that I have and connecting with so many of you in person on tour over the years, that I think all of this has an emotional component, whether it's an emotional component of, I crave this food because I want this feeling, or I crave this food because I know I can't have it. I think it's all related. So let's start with some of the biological reasons of the craving, because it's very real that, for example, right before ovulation, I crave different foods than right before my period. And then during my period, all I want is red meat. I don't want a lot of carbohydrate. And so it goes in and out. And so there are biological reasons why we crave certain things. And those cravings can be driven by the body signaling its need for something. So in the case of my example with the cereal, I'm using cereal as an example because I was craving cereal before recording this podcast and had a bowl before I got on because I'm lower in carbs today. Today is my rest day. Normally on a workout day, I'm hitting, I know your mind is going to be blown right now. Even saying this number out loud is terrifying. When I'm doing my heavy workout days, I'm hitting 400 to 450 grams of carbs. I know, it's crazy. Yeah, this was the Keto Diet podcast. I fully comprehend how ridiculous it is. But with the type of training that I'm doing right now, I just need so much of it. And that's just for me. You might be at this volume of training and be able to fuel on fat. I just can't. It just does not feel good. I don't feel good. I can't do it. And so on a heavy workout day, I'm hitting 400 to 450 grams of carbs. On a rest day, I'm maybe hitting 350 to 400. So today is my deep rest. I am full sloth mode. But today, instead of the full sloth mode, I had to go to our boat that we're selling and do a whole bunch of boat projects. And boat projects, they're not easy. It's definitely not a sloth activity. And so by the time I got home, eating in more of a rest sort of zone, I was hungry. And so I had like 2 meals. And I'm going out for pizza with some friends in about 2 hours. And I really wanted cereal. And so I checked my macro app, and sure enough, I'm still way low on carbs today. And so that could be just, hey, Leanne, you pushed it really hard. You're coming off a 6-hour hike from yesterday. And I didn't do good on my fueling yesterday. And my body's saying, you need more carbs. So in the previous paradigm, where I felt like I had certain foods that I could or could not have. Foods were good and bad. And if I wanted a bad food, then I would have had way more cereal. I would have had 6 bowls of cereal. And that I would have said, well, screw it. Since I've had the 6 bowls of cereal, I may as well eat all the frozen cookie dough in the freezer. Right? You've been there? It's not just me. And this happens often when our bodies require stabilization. And so if my body is saying, I need sugar now, I need carbohydrates right stinking now, the body is requiring quick energy to stabilize. And that's usually a sign that I haven't regulated my meals correctly. Other times, cravings can be emotional, like we talked about. If you've had a stressful day and suddenly that tub of ice cream in your freezer starts like whispering your name, even if it has a total pile of frostbitten grossness on it, you're like, that sounds good. That's usually your brain looking for a dopamine hit, because food, especially sweet or salty things, can give us that quick burst of feel-good chemicals. I've found that putting L-glutamine under my tongue can sometimes help this when it's a dopamine situation. Snuggling with my dog, going out with a friend, oxytocin is also part of this, having sex, those sorts of things can be really helpful for boosting up what we're actually wanting, which generally I would say 90% of the time when the craving is emotional for me, it's because I feel like I am lacking in connection. And I need to be connected with someone. And that someone can also be God. And so oftentimes, if I'm feeling that, it's a great time to reflect on the day, grab my Bible app, listen to my reading for the day, and just like remember that even when there are all these things going on and you feel like a soul warrior and you're just out there like doing your thing, that you're not actually by yourself. Headaches, fatigue, muscle cramps, and even sleeplessness sound familiar? These are often signs of an electrolyte imbalance. Electrolytes are essential for hydration, nerve function, and even hormonal balance. I've seen incredible changes in clients when they start addressing their hydration with the right electrolytes. That's why I've been using Element Daily for years. It's clean, effective, and has the perfect balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Element has no added sugar, no artificial ingredients, and it delivers exactly what your body needs to stay hydrated and energized. I love mixing the chocolate caramel flavor into my protein shakes or adding a citrus packet to sparkling water for a refreshing boost. If you're tired of feeling sluggish or dealing with cramps and headaches, Element can make a huge difference. Right now, they're offering a free sample pack with any purchase, so you can try all of their flavors risk-free. Visit drinklmnt.com/KDP to get your free sample pack with any order. And remember, it's backed by a no questions asked refund policy, so you can feel confident giving it a try. So we talked about the cravings being emotional and that burst of feel-good chemicals, but the relief is always temporary, because once the dopamine release is over, then the guilt sets in and the cycle begins again, either that moment or the next day, or like a series of events. Hormones will also play a role. Like I mentioned, there are certain foods that I crave at the beginning, middle, end of cycle. If you're not familiar with your cycle starts on day 1, which is the first day of bleed. And ovulation is going to happen somewhere around day 14 or so. And so you're likely going to feel the ovulation situation happening around 12, 13. You're going to notice some cravings, 14, 15, 16. Then you're going to slide into sort of like a dead zone, days 17, 18, 19, 20-ish. And then 21 is when your sleep may start getting worse a little bit. Your HRV lowers, you're craving more carbohydrates, and then your period starts. And generally speaking, unless you have estrogen dominance, when your hormones are balanced, oh man, I love my period. I wish I could be on my period every day. Like, I am strong, I'm sleeping well, my hunger is like, I'm so satiated. It's just great. And you might be like, I am so far from that. It wasn't something that happened overnight for me. It's definitely been a process, and you can get there too. If you're in perimenopause or you notice cravings ramp up just before your period, that's likely due to shifts of estrogen and progesterone. And these hormonal fluctuations can make you crave certain comfort foods because your body is seeking balance. They're actual foods that will increase and lower your estrogen as well as increase and lower your progesterone. I encourage you to just go on Google. And if you know if you're lacking in progesterone or you are estrogen dominant, there are foods, just type into Google, estrogen reducing foods and progesterone increasing foods. I crave oranges like nobody's business. Post ovulation, like every month, like clockwork. And when I started cleaning a little bit of the orange rind and chewing on it, it's such a great bitter food and can help regulate estrogen as well. Here's a testimony from one of my clients, Lisa, who struggled with cravings for years. And she told me I'd be good all day. And then at night, I'd find myself standing in front of the pantry, eating cookies straight out of the box. It felt like I had no control. So after working together, Lisa learned how to balance her meals and manage her stress. And now she rarely experiences those overpowering cravings. And that's really what it is about balancing your meals and managing your stress. Those two things are the key to unlocking the craving situation. Maybe a third piece could be understanding nutrient deficiencies. I find that mineral deficiencies, especially like magnesium and potassium, especially, I've noticed will cause significant cravings in individuals. Sometimes zinc can do the same, especially when estrogen is involved. Copper can sometimes build up, and we can deal with a zinc issue. And zinc, correcting a zinc imbalance can also help with hydrochloric acid production, which will then help you with your digestion. Another piece to cravings has to do with the serotonin that's released when we eat foods that we're sensitive to. Years and years ago, and I wish I could remember the book, I feel like maybe it was Dave Asprey that mentioned this. I think it was. And he had an app for a while where when you ate food, you could check your pulse after the food and you could see how your body responded to the foods that you were eating. And if your pulse rose up a certain beat per minute, like increase of percentage, you could determine whether or not that food was a sensitivity and causing like a hit for your body. It's interesting because the body will crave foods that we're sensitive to. Okay, here it is. I found it. So it was mentioned in a Dave Asprey book, but the maybe it's coca pulse test was developed in 1956, and it's a published book that described a simple way to test for hidden causes for many health conditions. The method was the result of a serendipitous improvement from a problem his wife had experienced. He then experimented with the method on his patients and found many other conditions that improved. His conclusion was that these conditions were actually symptoms of hidden food allergies or food sensitivities. True allergies are always protein-based compounds, whereas sensitivities can involve non-protein compounds. It is now better to describe them as true food allergies and hidden food sensitivities. So the pulse test allows us to determine food sensitivities, and we can actually crave the foods that we're sensitive to due to the impact that it has on your pulse. So I'll explain kind of this process because I have this document right in front of me and we're just going to go through it. I wasn't planning on it, but I'm like, wait, this is a good resource for you. So get a small piece of food that you want to check and sit at a table. Rest for a few minutes to allow your pulse rate to drop. Then check your pulse at your wrist for a full minute. Time it with the second hand of a clock or watch or use the minutes on a digital clock. Like you could just use your phone and count how many beats you feel. Once you have your resting pulse rate, put the piece of food on your tongue, only one type of food at a time, and keep it there for at least 30 seconds before you check your pulse rate again for a full minute with the food staying on your tongue the entire time. Here's some tips on how to do this. So do this test first thing in the morning before eating and drinking anything. Start when you are mentally, emotionally, and physically relaxed. Always take your pulse for one full minute. Don't take 30 seconds and multiply it by 2. While sitting, take a deep breath and slowly exhale. Take your pulse by counting how many times your heart beats in one exact minute. It may be easiest to feel your pulse by placing 2 fingers on the upper right side of your neck. I personally do it this way. I could never even feel it on my wrists. Record this pulse rate. Next, put a piece of food in question in your mouth that is okay to chew, but don't swallow. Taste the food for a full 30 seconds. Then take your pulse again for a full minute with the food in your mouth. Spit out the food and rinse your mouth with water. If the pulse test rate rises 6 or more points with food, it indicates a stress reaction, and that food should be avoided. Remember, food sensitivities can heal through diet and lifestyle changes, so it will be possible to retest and reintroduce foods at a later time after healing. If testing eggs, test the yolk separate from the egg white, etc. What I would do, this is super fun, is test the foods you crave. And I would love to hear from you what the results end up being, because my experience and my practice with my clients and also with myself is many of the foods that I crave and that women crave are the foods that they're sensitive to. And that increase in pulse is that dopamine hit right there. Yes. So foods that will often trigger a reaction, like a food sensitivity reaction, are going to be things like wheat, milk, rye, barley, egg, corn, potatoes. I mean, you know the list. But what I would do is check the foods that you crave. And I'm so curious if the ones that you crave are the ones that show that increase. I want to talk a little bit more about that whole guilt restriction cycle. When you give into a craving, like oftentimes it's because you haven't really thought through the process. I know for me, creating that pause was really, really helpful. In the case of the cereal example, today, I want cereal. Do I want something else? Why do I want the cereal? Check my macro app. Oh yeah, I need a quick hit. Let's do it. Like, I'm making that decision. Do I have guilt over it? No. I created a pause. I assessed the situation. I decided that I was moving forward. If you assess the situation and you're like, I just want it. I know it's going to make me feel terrible. Like, let's use an example for me. My husband came home recently with some milk chocolate macadamia nuts, and they full on had dairy, which affects my skin. I've been sporting acne for a month over this decision, but I really wanted them. And I ate the whole box, not in one sitting. Every day I had 2 pieces, and it took me like 2 weeks to get through it. And then at the end I had really bad skin, and I still do, because of those macadamia nuts. And I remember the first time I had them, I was like, am I making this decision? Because my skin is going to suck for a pretty long time if I do this. I was like, yeah, I want to. I'm like, is there something else? Like, could I get some dark chocolate ones? I'm like, no, I want milk chocolate. And I went through the whole thing, and then I had it. And why would I have guilt if I logically thought through it and decided to do a thing? So when the guilt happens, it's why did I do that? I was doing so well. Why do I always screw this up? I suck. It's because you haven't created the pause, and it could be that your goals don't match your actions. So I like to have clear skin. I enjoy having clear skin, but there's not really a drive for me having clear skin. So if I get to choose between macadamia nuts dipped in delicious milk chocolate, I'm going to have those because they're tasty and I enjoy them. And I don't really care if my skin's bad for a month. But on the flip side, if a friend says like, hey, will you come on a trip with me for a week before you go to Patagonia? There's no gym there and you won't be able to prepare for Patagonia. I'm sure you'll be just fine. I'm going to be like, no, absolutely not. Because my goal of completing Patagonia is greater than, at this time, not going to the gym and not doing those things. Perhaps a bad example, but we need to assess our goals with the things that we're doing. And if the things we're doing outpower the goals that we've set, we're not going to stick to them. It's like, why wouldn't I just eat the ice cream? What's the ice cream going to do? Okay, so I've had a stressful day. I want the ice cream. I need the ice cream. You're just going to eat it. If you're not creating the pause, you're just going to eat it and then you're going to feel guilty. Let's pretend you create the pause and you say, self, hold on a minute. Doesn't mean you can't have the ice cream, but let's unpack this. What's going on? Well, I had a stressful day. I really want ice cream. Will the ice cream make me feel better? Yes. Will it make me feel better in an hour? No. Is there something that will make me feel good now and in an hour from now? Maybe a bath. Okay. Well, could I have a bath with some ice cream? Like, could I have self-control to just have a bowl of ice cream instead of like from the pint standing in front of the freezer? Could I have self-control over that? No. Would I finish my bath and eat the rest of the ice cream? Yes. Okay. So is this about the ice cream? No. Do I want the ice cream? Yes. Do you see what I'm saying? And so if I eat the ice cream, how is that going to impact the rest of my life? If I have no goals, no direction of what I want out of life, I can't really answer that. Is the ice cream going to affect what? It's going to make me feel guilty, but is that enough to drive me to not make a decision? Probably not. Okay. So maybe we need to figure out, why doesn't that ice cream align with the person that you want to be? Is it that it's the ice cream that doesn't align with the person you want to be, or the activity that led to you wanting the ice cream? Why are you stressed? Well, because I hate my job. Okay, why do you hate your job? Because my boss doesn't let me have control over projects. Have you talked with your boss about it? Yeah. Okay, what was the outcome? My boss said if I brought it up again, I would lose my job. Okay, well, do you need your job? Yes. Why do you need your job? To support my family. Why do you want to support your family? So that my kids are able to play soccer. Why is it important for your kids to play soccer? Because I really like watching them be happy. Okay. So could we reframe your stressful day at work? Just an example. You can play around with this, but could we reframe your stressful day at work to, isn't it awesome that I get to support my kids with this job? And yes, it is very hard. But the stress that I'm feeling in the situation that I have right now, it's par for the course if my kids are going to have these activities. Could I look for another job right now instead of eating the ice cream? Why don't I have a bath? Because I know that'll feel really good and help me with stress. And then I'm going to jump online and see what jobs are available. I'm going to chat up some people that I used to work with at that other office and see if there's any positions or whatever. That's going to take you farther than eating the ice cream in front of the freezer and getting nothing done other than feeling guilty for the rest of the night and into the next day. What are we doing to ourselves? This is ridiculous. Like and I say that, I don't say this to myself enough, but it's so incredibly true. The amount of energy, time, money that I spend on thinking about silly things that do not matter is astronomical. A friend always tells me, God doesn't give grace to things that aren't real. And it's very true. And so I encourage you to create that pause next time the craving happens, because all you're going to do is get back on the guilt train, but you can't get on the guilt train if you thought logically through the process. And when you think logically through the process, just keep asking yourself, but why? But why? But why? And you'll get to a point where you're like, I actually don't know why the ice cream is bad. Like if you don't have a body composition goal or you don't have like a health goal, maybe your nutritionist said you can't have saturated fats and ice cream is loaded with saturated fats. Well, why can't you have saturated fats? Because I'm sensitive to them and they increase my cholesterol. Why do you care about your cholesterol? Because I want to be around for my kids. I don't want to have a heart attack. Well, there you go. Okay, so the reason you're not eating the ice cream and you think that maybe having an entire pint of ice cream isn't a good idea is because this will lead to behavior that affects your health, that makes it so that down the road you can't be with your kids. And so it really comes down to setting goals, being clear with them. And the goal is not to fit into your size whatever dress. That's not helpful. Or I want to feel good when I walk into the family reunion. Feeling good is not enough motivator. Why? Is it so that you can have the perfect revenge body? No, keep going. Why? Just keep asking yourself. It's going to be challenging, but it's totally worth it. And it's way better than eating the pint of ice cream, feeling guilty about it, skipping your meal or cutting your carbs or adjusting your MyFitnessPal the next day because you overate on carbohydrates, pressing an undo over what you ate. The problem is that restriction only makes your body more desperate for energy and the cravings will hit harder. So another thing you need to ask yourself is, am I actually hungry? What if I had dinner and then a little bowl, like a little scoop of ice cream after dinner? Could that be enough? The cycle that many of us are on is an overindulgence, guilt, restriction cycle that's just exhausting. And it's completely unsustainable. And breaking this pattern truly starts with creating the pause. And instead of beating yourself up over it, try to reframe the situation. Like, what is my body trying to tell me? Am I tired? Am I stressed? Am I hungry? Do I just need a moment? Do I need to like go into the bedroom, play some music, just chill out for a second before I move on with the rest of my evening or my morning or my day? At the root of cravings, there can definitely be some biological issues. So, like blood sugar imbalances, when your meals lack protein and healthy fats or fiber, and the balance between these, your blood sugar can spike and crash. So, you go high and then low and then crave more things. In fact, recently I did a nutrient test and it showed that I was low in chromium. And I went from doing one capsule of chromium to two. And I kept having all these blood sugar crashes. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm taking too much chromium. I'm like dropping my blood sugar too low because I sit lower than most with my pulse and my blood sugar. And so for me, that really, really didn't work. And I was reminded how big of a swing it can happen and you're just shaky and terrible. And so cravings can definitely be a sign that wearing a CGM or tracking your glucose measurements after your meal and making sure that 2 hours after you eat, you're at the same amount of glucose that you were before eating can be a helpful way to regulate it. If you're having a hard time regulating your blood sugar, it's probably because you're lacking in either protein, fats, or fiber. And so a key thing for me in a rule across all my meals to know whether or not I'm going to be the most satiated is that if a meal has around 50 grams of carbs, I want to make sure that I have at least 30 grams of protein and or at least 15 grams of fat. And ideally, I want to be at like 45 to 55 grams of fiber a day. You might be thinking like, how do you even get that much? I eat a lot of frozen mixed berries because they're way cheaper than the fresh ones. Chia, flax, coconut flour, avocado, lentils, and beans. That's basically all my fiber sources. Kiwi, I go through kiwi phases. And that can be helpful for making sure their blood sugar is balanced throughout the day. Micronutrient deficiencies, like I mentioned, the magnesium deficiency, I see that a lot. The low zinc levels, I see that a lot. And the desire for salty snacks to boost up your hydrochloric acid. But the zinc will actually do a better job of this. Cravings are often the body's way of telling us we need certain nutrients. Not always, but sometimes. Gut health can also be part of this. Like an imbalanced gut can crave specific foods, like Pseudomonas, for example, can crave, this is a type of bacteria. Klebsiella can do this a little bit too with gluten, eggs, and dairy. And so we'll start craving those things that actually feed that bacteria and make it worse. And they can drive cravings. Yeast will do the same thing for sugar. When we feel like out of control with sugar, oftentimes it can be a yeast imbalance. Emotional triggers, like we talked about, like the stress, boredom, celebrations, even. It's always hard, I find, for celebrations and time with family to detach the experience of food around those events. I feel like I do a pretty good job of this now, but I really struggled with this for many, many years of like, just because I'm not eating all the things doesn't mean I can't have a good time. Lack of sleep will totally do this. Poor sleep absolutely annihilates hunger hormones. Hormones in general, our feeling of fatigue and requiring just more carbohydrates and feeling like we need those things. Your morning coffee could do more than just wake you up. What if it also supported your brain, immune system, and overall wellness? Paleo Valley organic coffee isn't just coffee. It's coffee with benefits. It's low acid, gentle on your gut, and infused with organic coffee fruit extract and 8 functional mushrooms like lion's mane for focus, reishi for stress relief, and chaga for immune support. What sets it apart? It's loaded with polyphenols, powerful antioxidants you won't find in most store-bought coffee. Unlike other brands, Paleo Valley uses the whole coffee fruit, not just the bean, so you get a nutrient-dense brew that's smooth, rich, and packed with health benefits. Since switching, I've noticed sharper focus in the morning and less stomach discomfort, something no other coffee has delivered for me. Transform your coffee routine today. Head to paleovalley.com/Leanne to save 20% and try risk-free with their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's paleovalley.com/Leanne to save 20%. So let's talk about some of the additional tools that I use that I've enjoyed. We talked massively about creating the pause, and I would say like that above all else is so important. We've talked about balancing our meals, making sure that you're having enough fiber, protein, and the balance of your macronutrients. So not all fats in one meal and all carbs in the other. Try to separate them out really nicely. And I encourage you to track your meals a couple times a week to just see, how am I doing? And it's a real fun activity. Like, come the afternoon when I'm like, wow, what is that hunger that I'm feeling? Oh man, that's definitely a protein feeling. Look at how low my protein is today. And I can start to differentiate between a protein hunger, a fat hunger, a carb hunger, and it actually feels different. Staying hydrated also helps with this. Having a glass of water, like when you're learning how to listen to your body, oftentimes you won't have an easy time differentiating between a hunger pain and a thirst pain. And so adding a little bit of salt to, or some sort of electrolyte powder to your water can help. And I would obviously, if you've eaten in the last 2 to 3 hours, you're probably not hungry yet unless you had a really imbalanced meal. So I would encourage you to have some water. If it's been like an hour since your last meal, chances are you're just thirsty. If it's been like 4 hours since your last meal, you're probably just hungry. I wouldn't have water. And if the meal was balanced, then it's time for another balanced meal. If the meal was imbalanced, it could be that you're actually hungry, even if it's 1 or 2 hours. In fact, yesterday I had just this yogurt bowl and I thought, hey, I bet you this is going to be lower in protein than is required. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, I was like, yeah, I need more protein. That's not going to do it. I'm still hungry. It wasn't that I was hungry for all the things. I just needed to have a little bit more protein. Another piece to this is just overall stress management. Okay, stress management. We've talked about this so much. Cravings are often stress related. And so taking that pause when you're in the middle of a craving is important. But also, if you notice yourself constantly craving foods around stressful situations, we need to learn how to deal with the stress so the craving isn't coming. So things like deep breathing and taking breaks. In fact, when I worked in the office, instead of taking a lunch hour, I would eat lunch at my desk and I would take 5 or 10 minute like breaks every couple of hours where I could just go outside for a walk and just like catch my breath and listen to some binaural beats and just chill for a little bit. We talked a little bit about intermittent fasting as well. Intermittent fasting has become so popular, but for some women, it can absolutely backfire. If you're going too long without eating and then you get home and you're in a whole binge situation until evening, it's not working for you. Like, it's not helping. It's actually making it worse. Now, there's a supplement I enjoy using. In this case, we've talked about L-glutamine under the tongue being really, really helpful for dealing with those cravings when we get a hit of a craving and we're just like, oh, I need a tool. If you find that you're in this rigmarole of like, I want the food, I ate the food, I'm working on the emotional piece, but I'm just eating so much, like you're actually eating too much. You've calculated out your macros or at least your calories, you're tracking, you're like, wow, I'm 300, 400, even more calories over for the day. And I feel bad about myself. And then this whole guilt thing happens and I'm not taking it seriously. I'm going to include a link to a supplement that I've enjoyed using with some clients. It's a product called Lean. I'll include the link. It's healthfulpursuit.com/lean. That's LEAN. And what I like about this is it's a supplement that helps with our ability to regulate cravings. Now, I am not at all saying that the last 40 minutes that we spent together talking about the mental capacity pieces, the balancing your macros, like this is for individuals that just need a leg up. It's very much similar to how I recommend exogenous ketones, where it's like you're working towards stuff, you just need a little push, and this will do it. What Lean provides is bioactive precision peptides. They're like little messengers in the body that help to curb appetite and support metabolic wellness. And what I like is that you just take 2 capsules with water. What I recommend for some of my macro clients who are on this product is when they know that their hungry feelings are starting. Now, this is only for people who are eating too much. If you are a lady eating 800 calories a day and you want to lose weight, this is not the product for you. But this can help you get a leg up on your cravings, on the overeating that you're doing, so we can start working through some of the mental pieces and the macro balancing and all the things. It helps to decrease the cravings and promote a healthy weight. I've seen women use this alongside of working on their balanced meals and movements and really take control of that like hunger. One of my clients, she was okay with me sharing. Her name is Sarah. And she said, I just love them. I've tried every trick in the book to manage my cravings, but lean was the game changer for me. It helped me feel satisfied and in control for the first time in years. And that's really all the tools that I want to provide with you are things that you can take away, mull it over, write it all down. And there might just be one thing that you're like, yeah, I'm going to try that. And it doesn't have to be all of this by far. Like, do not try to do all of it. But if you feel like you just need that extra bit of help, you can go to healthfulpursuit.com/lean. Okay, longer term strategies to end off today's episode. Track your patterns. Keep a journal to identify what's happening. Like, just jot in your journal. No guilt, no nothing. Just facts. Monday, stressful day at work, craved ice cream. Tuesday, didn't go into work. Interesting. I felt really great today. Didn't have any cravings. And start asking yourself, why? Why are these cravings happening? What's going on? Building a routine also where you eat every 4 to 5 hours. I actually have an eating schedule and I eat on that schedule because if I don't, then I'm going to eat whatever because I'm just so hungry I can't even think. So if you're that type of person, setting a consistent eating schedule where you eat every 4 to 5 hours can stop you from feeling out of control later. And also celebrating the big things. The first time you create a pause for yourself and you're like, hold on a minute. Before we go eating the ice cream, you totally can, no judgment. Let's just sit here a little bit and feel through this feeling. What's going on? When you do that, give yourself a big hug from me to you because that is huge. That progression is awesome. And in closing, I hope that something that I shared with you today was super helpful, whether it's creating the pause, balancing your macros, thinking through the why, or using a product like Lean. I hope that something in here just struck a chord and you're ready to get started. Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of Healthful Pursuit, and I will see you back here next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Healthful Pursuit podcast. Join us next Tuesday for another episode of the show. If you're looking for free resources, there are a couple of places you can go. The first to my blog, healthfulpursuit.com, where you're going to find loads of recipes. The second is a free parasite protocol that I've put together for you that outlines symptoms, testing, and resources to determine whether or not you have a parasite, plus a full protocol to follow to eradicate them from your life if you need to. That's available at healthfulpursuit.com/parasites. And last but certainly not least, a full list of blood work markers to ask your doctor for so that you can get a full picture of your health. You can grab that free resource by going to healthfulpursuit.com/labs. The Healthful Pursuit podcast, including show notes and links, provides information in respect to healthy living, recipes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Healthful Pursuit podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without any representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified health practitioner with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.